The lights of Tampa Bay shimmered like a sea of stars, fireworks crackling above Raymond James Stadium. Confetti rained down in waves of red and pewter, while chants of "Brady, Brady" echoed through the air. It was a night to remember, a seventh Super Bowl title for Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback the game had ever known. Cameras flashed, reporters jostled, and players hoisted the Lombardi Trophy high. For most, it was a scene of triumph, but in the shadows of the stands, away from the glittering spectacle, sat a small figure with solemn eyes. Vivian Brady. Just 9 years old, Vivian clutched a miniature replica of the trophy in her lap. Her brothers were on the field, cheering with Dad. The crowd was roaring. But no one had noticed her sitting alone. If stories like this move you, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful moments and human triumphs. Tom Brady had become more than a sports icon. He was a symbol of resilience, discipline, and success. From his early days as a sixth-round pick to a living legend with more championships than any franchise, his story was etched in greatness. But behind the records and trophies was a man balancing two worlds, the roar of the stadium and the quiet hum of home. At home, Tom was a husband to Giselle and a father to 3 children, Jack, Benjamin, and the youngest, Vivian. His life had been a whirlwind of training camps, late-night film sessions, and adrenaline-pumping Sundays. Yet he cherished the moments of stillness, bedtime stories, pancake mornings, lazy beach walks. Vivian, the apple of his eye, had always been a bright spark. She had a wild imagination, a laugh that could melt any stress, and a way of sneaking into his arms during post-game interviews. She adored her father, but lately something had changed. In the weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, the family had felt the growing weight of pressure. Tom was focused, laser-focused on the playoffs. Late nights became later, conversations turned brief. His phone rang constantly. When Vivian showed him her handmade poster, he'd smiled, kissed her forehead, and said, "Daddy's got to win this one." And win he did, but victory had a cost. At the championship parade, surrounded by teammates and thousands of fans, Tom lifted the trophy again. Vivian waved from the sidelines, hoping he'd spot her, but he didn't. Not that time. Later that night, as the family gathered in a suite to celebrate, Jack recounted every pass, Benjamin posed with the trophy, and Tom relived the final drive with coaches. Vivian quietly slipped away and curled up in a corner chair. She wasn't angry, just invisible. Tom didn't notice at first. He was caught in a whirlwind of praise, handshakes, and backslaps. Giselle, ever observant, caught Vivian's gaze and sat beside her, brushing hair from her daughter's face. "You okay, meu amor?" she whispered. Vivian nodded. "I just thought maybe he'd want to take a picture with me too." It wasn't a complaint. It was a whisper of longing, a crack, faint but undeniable. As the night wound down and the family drove back to their home, Tom sat in the back seat, his mind still buzzing from the game. Vivian leaned her head against the window, her reflection staring back at her. The celebration had ended. But something else was beginning, something Tom couldn't see yet. A quiet shift in his daughter's eyes, a silent distance forming not from anger, but from absence. And the greatest quarterback in history had no idea. Back at home, the confetti had settled, but something else lingered in the air, a silence that wasn't typical. Tom moved through the house, still wrapped in the afterglow of victory, taking calls from teammates, responding to media requests, watching replays. The house was full of movement, yet one small voice was notably quiet. Vivian sat at the kitchen counter, coloring with little interest. Giselle placed a smoothie in front of her, kissed the top of her head, and exchanged a glance with Tom. He was there physically, but his mind was still in the stadium. Vivian didn't say much that day, not during breakfast, not when her brothers reenacted touchdown dances, not even when Giselle offered to watch a movie with her. That night, while brushing her teeth, Vivian finally spoke. "Daddy?" "Yeah, sweetie? You love football more than me, right?" The question hit him like a blindside tackle. He turned from the bathroom mirror, stunned. "What? No, baby, of course not. Why would you say that?" She shrugged. You smile more when you talk about the game. You always say it's your dream. I thought maybe I'm not one." Tom knelt beside her, heart in his throat. But before he could respond, she kissed his cheek and padded off to bed. He stayed there for a moment, staring at the closed door. The words haunted him. The next morning, Tom skipped his usual workout. Instead, he sat in the living room, holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold. Giselle joined him, barefoot, wrapped in a robe. "She didn't even want to go to school today," she said softly. "Said she had a stomachache." Tom rubbed his eyes. "Is it that bad?" Giselle didn't answer immediately. "She's always adored you. But lately, you've been there less and less, even when you are here." He wanted to argue, but he couldn't. How many times had he rushed out the door before breakfast? How many missed piano recitals? How often had his phone buzzed during bedtime stories? Tom had always believed he was doing it all for them. The sacrifices, the pressure, the spotlight, everything was for his family. But he hadn't noticed that what they needed most wasn't the victories. It was him. That week the household felt the strain. Tom tried to make up for things, bringing home gifts, offering to play. But Vivian kept her distance. She was polite, but cool, detached. Giselle encouraged him. "It's not too late," she said. "But it can't be patched with stuff. You have to be present." Tom nodded. He began cancelling some obligations. He turned down a major podcast interview, said no to a marketing shoot. He wanted to be home. He wanted to reconnect. But Vivian remained guarded. At dinner, Jack and Benjamin chatted about school. Vivian ate quietly. Tom asked how her day was. "It was fine," she said without looking up. The words stung more than any sack ever had. Not because they were cruel, but because they were indifferent. Later that night, Tom lay in bed unable to sleep. He stared at the ceiling, recalling every step of his career, the moments he fought through injury, the critics he'd silenced, the records he'd shattered. But none of it felt as heavy as this one sentence. "You love football more than me." And for the first time in a long time, Tom Brady felt like he was losing a game he didn't even know he was playing. The house was quiet. Everyone had gone to bed, but Tom couldn't sleep. He found himself walking down the hall, drawn by something he couldn't explain. He paused outside Vivian's door, hesitated, then gently pushed it open. She was fast asleep, hugging her favorite stuffed panda, the glow of a small nightlight casting shadows across her room. He noticed her sketchbook lying on the floor. Curiosity tugged at him. He picked it up and flipped through the pages. What he saw brought a lump to his throat. One drawing showed their family: Tom, Giselle, Jack, Benjamin, and Vivian. But in the picture, Vivian was drawn far off to the side, colored in dull grays, while everyone else was vibrant. Another page showed the Super Bowl parade. Everyone was smiling in the float. Vivian was in the corner of the crowd, her arms stretched unnoticed. Tom's chest tightened. He sat down on the edge of her bed, the weight of those pages anchoring him. He had missed it, all of it. The signs had been there, and he hadn't seen them. The next morning, Tom made a call that shocked his agent. "I'm pulling out of the commercial shoot." "Tom, it's a national campaign. You can't—" "I need time with my daughter," he said, voice firm. "This can wait." "She can't." Before the call ended, Tom had cleared his schedule for 2 weeks. No interviews, no obligations. Just him and Vivian. He approached her with a soft smile. "How about a trip? Just you and me. No football, no cameras." Her eyes widened. "Really? Really, anywhere you want." She hesitated. "Can we go somewhere with mountains?" "I want to see snow." "Mountains it is." They packed light and left the next day, flying to a quiet cabin retreat nestled in the Colorado Rockies. No press, no fans, just fresh snow, pine trees, and a silence that gave room for something more important to grow. At first, Vivian was cautious. She stayed close but didn't talk much. Tom didn't push. He made her pancakes, let her pick the hiking trails, built snowmen with her, and learned how to make her laugh again. They played card games by the fire, roasted marshmallows, and watched the stars in silence. Every day, Tom gave her his full attention. He asked questions, not about school or chores, but about her dreams, her fears, her favorite colors. Slowly, the space between them began to shrink. One evening, as they sat sipping hot cocoa, Vivian giggled at one of his silly impressions. It was the first genuine laugh he'd heard from her in weeks. Tom felt something shift, a tiny victory, deeper than any Super Bowl win. "I like this version of you," she said softly. "What version is that?" he asked. "The one that doesn't always look at his phone," he smiled. "Yeah, I like him too." That night, as she drifted off to sleep, Tom sat outside under the stars. The crisp mountain air filled his lungs, and for the first time in a long while, he felt at peace. Not because of trophies or headlines, but because he had started showing up in the place that mattered most. There was still a conversation waiting, questions unanswered, feelings unspoken, but now the silence between them wasn't distance. It was comfort. And for Tom Brady, that was a start. The night sky above the mountains was clear, a blanket of stars stretching endlessly. Tom and Vivian lay side by side on a thick quilt spread over the snow-dusted deck. She pointed at constellations with the confidence of someone who had spent time memorizing them. He listened, genuinely absorbed, as if each word carried a piece of her he'd never heard before. After a long pause, Vivian turned her head toward him. "Daddy? Yeah? Can I ask you something? But you can't get mad. I promise." She was quiet for a moment, then whispered, "Why do you love football more than me?" Tom closed his eyes. The question, though softly spoken, landed like a thunderclap. He sat up, heart pounding, searching for the right words. "Viv, I don't love football more than you, not even close, but I understand why you feel that way. And I'm sorry. You always say football is your dream. You always smile when you're with the team. I just thought..." Her voice trailed off. Tom gently took her hand. "Football's something I've done for a long time. It gave me a lot. But it also took a lot. Time, energy, focus. And the truth is, I let it take some of that away from you. That was never okay." Vivian didn't respond right away. Instead, she asked, "Do you even know what my dream is?" The question stunned him. His throat tightened. "No," he admitted softly. "But I want to. I want to be an artist," she said. "Not just drawing, but colors and textures and stories, like pictures that talk. But I stopped showing you because you always said, 'Later, sweetheart.'" Tom's eyes stung. "I missed it," he said. "I missed so much." She leaned into him then, resting her head on his arm. "I just wanted you to see me. I see you now," he said, voice breaking, "and I never want to miss you again." The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was healing, the kind that lets things settle back into place gently. Over the next few days, they explored more of the mountains, but something was different. Vivian opened up freely, laughing louder, reaching for his hand without hesitation. Tom felt like he was getting to know his daughter all over again, not through moments squeezed between flights and practices, but through presence. When they returned home, Tom didn't go back to the same pace. The first thing he did was call a press conference, not to talk stats or strategy, but to share something real. He stepped up to the podium and said, "I've made mistakes, not on the field, but off it. I've spent years chasing greatness in football. But the most important title I'll ever hold is Dad, and lately I realized I wasn't winning there." The room was quiet. Reporters looked at each other, surprised. He continued, "This break was about one thing, my daughter. I almost lost something I didn't know was slipping away, but I got it back. And from now on, everything changes." That press conference went viral, not because of football news, but because people saw something rare. A man who had it all admitting he'd almost missed what truly mattered. Tom wasn't stepping away from the game yet, but he was stepping into something far more sacred, the everyday rhythm of fatherhood. And for the first time in a long while, Vivian was right there beside him, hand in hand. The days that followed were quieter, more grounded. Tom began rearranging his life, not for retirement, but for balance. He cut back on appearances, scaled down his commitments, and set new boundaries. Family dinners became sacred. Mornings were for pancakes, and weekends weren't for media tours. They were for movies, puzzles, and art projects. Vivian thrived, her sketchbook filled with color again. No more gray figures. Her family was now front and center, her smile bright and her presence bold. Tom made a point to sit beside her while she painted, asking questions, offering praise, genuinely listening. She began inviting him into her world without hesitation, and he never missed the invitation. It wasn't perfect. There were still busy days and distractions, but the difference now was intent. Tom showed up with purpose, not just in body, but in heart. At school, Vivian beamed when she shared her art with classmates. When asked to write about her hero, she wrote, "My dad, because now he really sees me." That essay found its way into Tom's hands. He kept it in his wallet, folded carefully behind old game plans and laminated plays. In public, people noticed the change. During interviews, when asked about his proudest moment, Tom no longer pointed to the 28-3 comeback or his 7th ring. He smiled and said, "The night my daughter forgave me." Sports shows replayed the clip. Fans responded with admiration. But more than that, parents across the country paused. They looked up from their phones, their work, their routines. They listened. One father wrote, "Tom made me realize I haven't been showing up for my daughter. I canceled a meeting today just to walk her to school." Another said, "It's not about the wins. It's about the moments you can't replay." The impact rippled outward, beyond touchdowns and trophies. Tom's vulnerability gave others permission to reflect, to reconnect. He didn't step away from football, not immediately. But he stepped into something deeper. He became more than an icon. He became a mirror for others to see their own stories, their own missed chances, and their own potential for change. Months later, on a crisp autumn afternoon, Tom sat on a bench at the edge of a soccer field. Parents were chatting, cheering, laughing. Vivian sprinted across the field, ponytail bouncing, eyes locked on the goal. She kicked with everything she had and scored. The crowd erupted. But Vivian didn't look to her coach, her teammates, or the scoreboard. She ran straight to Tom. He stood, arms open. She leaped into them without hesitation. "You did it," he said, breathless with joy. She grinned. "I'm your MVP now, huh?" He held her tight. "You always were." It wasn't a headline moment. No cameras, no reporters. Just a father and daughter, a bond rebuilt, a truth finally lived. And in that quiet, powerful second, Tom Brady felt something greater than any roar of a stadium. He felt home. If this story moved you, subscribe now for more real-life moments that show the heart behind the headlines. And don't forget to click the video on your screen. We've got another story you won't want to miss.